So in this one, I'll be making straight yellow rubber stars. So, start up our scale. Zero out our bowl. So first we are adding 2.4 ounces potassium perchlorate. Another 2.4 ounces of magnesium. 0.4 ounces barium carbonate, which is where we'll get our color from. I totally didn't forget to measure something. So we got 1.2 ounces of Parlon to act as our binder and our chlorine donor. 0.4 ounces of red gum. Now we can see we are exactly 0.4 below what we're supposed to be, and we can see we were supposed to add 0.4 of strontium carbonate, meaning that I forgot to measure that out. And I may have just realized what was wrong with my red stars. I thought I had the strontium carbonate here next to me. I have the strontium bicarbonate next to me. This is the bag of strontium carbonate. So I wonder if they were so fucked up because I used strontium bicarbonate. Which could make it pretty interesting what happens when I try to light them. I will have to see if that will actually work. Done with the scale for a second. Give everything a quick mix. Yeah, so now I'm excited to see if those rubber stars work, because I don't know how strontium bicarbonate is going to react compared to strontium carbonate. So again, take our 20 mesh screen here.
Put all of our mix into it. And just work on screening it through. And yeah, that potassium perchlorate always likes to form clumps on me for some reason. So does the strontium really, but I don't actually have that big of a problem with the strontium. But yeah, just kind of focusing on trying to break up these clumps, get it screened. Shit happens. We'll go ahead and put that back in there. Do a little bit of mixing here.
And then, now technically if we got out 2 pieces of wax paper, which when we make this into a putty, we will need 2 pieces of wax paper, then you could just go between those 2 pieces of wax paper. Just the step of kind of pouring it into a bowl I like, and then I can actually work it around in the bowl. So that is kind of a preference thing there. See, that's really why we need to scrape the sides, because even though the vibrations, everything went through, the stuff that was up here on the sides wasn't moving enough to actually screen anything out. And then we actually have a lot of aluminum shavings from our Magnilium, so I will actually probably throw that out. We ended up actually breaking the 40 mesh screen, so I will actually probably do a video on how to frame a screen when I make a new 40 mesh.
Final screen.
And there's a couple little bits left, but we'll go ahead and screen that out. So, yeah, you can see little aluminum shavings, but I don't think the aluminum's really gonna hurt anything. Now, Magnilium is actually an alloy of magnesium and aluminum. It is not just magnesium dust mixed with aluminum dust. Which is actually kind of cool, I thought. But they ship it with magnesium or with aluminum turnings in it for shipping regulation. Because, magnesium is one of those things that's extremely dangerous to transport. And so now we'll add 1.75 ounces of acetone by weight to melt our Parlon. But yeah, it's just one of those weird things where I guess to meet shipping requirements or to make it easier to ship, they actually put aluminum turnings in it. So with the aluminum not actually being the primary reactant, I wonder if it'll affect our composition here. I don't know, worst case scenario, like I said, that it ends up not working and we just make another batch. You buy the chemicals by the pound, and here we are measuring ounces, so it's not horribly expensive. That is one of the nice things I like about making fireworks, is that my family's big holiday is the 4th of July. So there are legitimately people that go there and spend like $1,000 on consumer fireworks. And if that's how they want to spend their money, then more power to them. We always have a lot of fun. I don't have that kind of money to spend though. Some of us are poor. That might work. It seems to be mostly cohesive. So we will try to form it into a patty. Go ahead, pull out another piece of wax paper for when we get to that step. And per always, this stuff is really bad for your skin. So always put on some latex gloves. Or, other alternatives are available. Because, yeah, this stuff is just bad for skin. And I think that may actually worked pretty well there. It was a little light on the acetone. So we'll just kind of knead it into a bread dough, get some of that acetone to evaporate, make sure everything's nice and cohesive. So one thing that we will actually get into later with whenever we do a white star is that you can actually add different materials to kind of modify your star. So like we use fairly fine magnesium, so our stars are going to burn pretty bright, but obviously the hotter they burn, then the quicker they burn up. You know, you have so many reactants in your equation. The faster that equation happens, well, the faster those reactants are consumed. You can actually add, like if you're using a recipe that calls for charcoal, like your black powder, you can use fine or coarse charcoal to affect your burn rate. But also it can add to your display, because if you add super coarse charcoal to any composition, especially like black powder, then you can actually get charcoal streaks as it goes up and as it's consumed and burned, because the bigger chunks of charcoal in there are actually going to take longer to burn. So one of the really common things for star composition is that by adding metal to it, or, you know, finely powdered metal more or less, we can actually add like spark trails. They call them rising tails a lot of the time. So we can kind of get that spark trail going by adding a powdered metal. So I almost wonder if the flakes of aluminum would, instead of, you know, interfering with the composition, I wonder if they're going to have more of this rising tail effect. Of course, I always keep all of my aluminum shavings from my magnesium filtering because, you know, it's covered in magnesium, so it's probably not a good thing to throw away. And aluminum shavings don't really burn. You can melt them pretty easy. So I don't actually, I just keep them for now. If they end up having a cool effect, I can always add them back into my star compositions. And I mean, that would be pretty good recycling. So as per always, start with our hot prime and our very, very upscale safe container here. And you can't really add too much of it. And this is also the reason why I keep a silica packet in there, is because for this step you really do need a kind of fine powder. And if it wasn't a fine powder, it wouldn't, you'd have to break up the clumps. And this is really not something you want to screen, because this mixture, if it catches a single spark, it will just go. So screening this really isn't an option. I guess it's one of those instances where an ounce of prevention is worth the pound of cure. So use dry ingredients, keep them in dry storage, and never have to worry about them. That kind of worked. That wasn't as graceful as last time. But yeah, you start with dry ingredients, you screen them so that you know that there are no lumps. You throw a silica packet in there, because really moisture is the thing that's going to cause this to clump up more than anything else, honestly. Then we can ensure that we never have clumps form and we don't have issues. So close our container. Don't want to leave an open container or flammable around. That is pretty well primed and pretty uniform. So, got an idea. We will see if it works. Gonna fold the edge over, put my screen on there, and I'm gonna try to pick it up towards that edge. And then remember to move my other piece of wax paper over. So now, when I pick this up, check that out, we didn't lose any of our hot prime. Ew, that's a little close against the edge. So push our edge down into the screen here, because as it starts rolling, we want it to get pressed through and cut. We don't want it to spread out. Then we can just start working our way around it. You know, disregard the macaroni noises. See little white specks. I wonder if that's from my hot prime. So now, roll it through. I don't know if I ever did mention it, but because I am making 3-inch shells, the like 3/16 diameter stars are the perfect size for that. So you roll your putty into a 3/16 thick dough or pad, and then this 3 mesh here. These holes are about 3/16 apart. So the idea here is to try to make a perfect 3/16 cube, and that way whenever we put it in the priming pan and we roll it out, then with any luck we'll get a 3/16 round star out of it, or round enough. Wipe the inside just to be sure. Okay, so there's all of our stars mixed in with a little bit of the hot prime already. Get our priming bowl. And part of the reason for using this bowl instead of my mixing bowl is not because there's anything real special or different. It's 99% was because I actually have a lid for the priming bowl. And so I can put that on there and not have to worry about stars jumping out and getting all over the counter. But if I do that, you can't really see what I'm doing. It's more of a noisemaker than it is, you know, showing somebody how to do this. So generally, whenever I'm rolling out stars, I just don't put the cover back on, or I don't put the lid on. And part of the denatured alcohol is it does actually soften them up a little bit. So they're still mostly square. By getting them wet with the alcohol, they'll actually round out. Get back in there. Little bit of our hot prime stuck down there in the corner. So they're glistening a little bit. Still wet with the alcohol. We'll get out our second kind of prime. And again, part of the reason for double priming them like this is because if you have something that like gently throws the stars, then the hot prime would probably be enough. Maybe even with a 3-inch shell, it would be enough. I want to make sure that every star burns every single time. That looks pretty good. Not really any powder left. They look nice and dull, so I know they're fully coated. I will actually call that a success. But with the hot prime, if you gently throw the stars or like lit them on the ground or something, they'd probably work just fine. But we're gonna have one real second where these things get touched with fire, which is when the shell explodes and breaks apart, which is gonna throw them everywhere very, very quickly. The more flammable they are, then the more reliable we know that they're going to burn. So by getting the black powder prime, it's not so much that it lights the star. It's more of the hot prime, it creates the condition for the star to burn. Because remember, the star is made out of fuel and an oxidizer. It will burn once it catches fire. The hot prime kind of is like your kindling that starts the fire. So it makes it so that the star gets hot enough where that reaction can happen. And that's why it's hot prime. We want it to burn as hot as possible and last a good, second or two. Well, then our black powder prime is kind of the opposite of that. It is black powder, it is extremely hot, but it burns out extremely fast. So, with any luck with this, what'll happen is that our break charge will light the black powder, which will give us enough of a burn to light our hot prime, and once our hot prime is on fire and burning, then it'll actually get our star to start burning. And then once the star's burning, the chemical reaction takes place and we get to see all of the pretty colors. So that will go in the drying rack, probably 4 hours or until dry. All of our gloves, all of our mixing parchment paper, all of that will go into our hot trash. It will not be thrown away, and the hot trash will just be burned in a barrel later. So we'll be back whenever this is dry. Okay, so we're back. Our yellow stars are completely dry again, and I will try to stop. Oh, hey, look, aluminum. I will try to stop recording in vertical mode like a fucking potato. So again, no big clumps. Now would be the chance to break them up. Okay, so we got some left over from an old batch. Open that up a little bit. And there is our yellow stars. Now, I don't actually put silica packets in these because the thing is they're actually rubber, so they are actually water resistant. Them getting wet from humidity is not really a big deal. So not horribly worried about it, shouldn't be a problem. So now at the end of any good session, it is time to clean the tools. And we'll see you next time when we do green.